I will not carry a gun, Frank. When I got into this war, I had a very clear understanding with the Pentagon. No guns.
Try to imagine American television without MASH. Go ahead, give it a shot. Hard to do, right? That's because MASH wasn't just another ratings hit. It redefined what a comedy series could dare to be. When it first hit the airwaves in 1972, with the Vietnam War still casting its long shadow, MASH dared to set its story in the Korean War, using humor not to escape from pain, but to dive headfirst into it. And through a cast of wonderfully quirky misfits, the show captured both the absurdity of battle and the unbreakable spirit of those caught in its chaos. What began as a quiet, overlooked series soon snowballed into a cultural phenomenon. But behind that growing popularity was a backstage world in constant motion. As the show ventured into richer emotional territory and bolder storytelling choices, things got complicated, especially off-screen. One by one, beloved cast members made their exits. But why? Was it burnout? A craving for new creative challenges? Or were there deeper, less obvious reasons pulling them away? Some of the truths might surprise you. So let's lift the veil and uncover what was really happening behind the cameras. Before we plunge into the real drama behind the scenes, we have to go back to the very beginning of MASH's unexpected journey. Believe it or not, this groundbreaking show didn't originate in a TV writer's room, but on the pages of a novel. In 1968, a former military surgeon, writing under the pen name Dr. Richard Hooker, published MASH, a novel about 3 Army doctors. Based partly on his own experiences in the Korean War, the book was equal parts dark comedy and brutal honesty. Its blend of satire and sincerity created something rare, a war story that made readers laugh and ache at the same time. It didn't take long for Hollywood to notice. Just 2 years later, the story leapt from the page to the silver screen. Director Robert Altman took the reins and transformed MASH into a film that felt raw, sharp, and startlingly real. With Donald Sutherland as the razor-sharp Hawkeye and Elliot Gould as the irreverent Trapper John, the movie mirrored the national mood, restless, cynical, and searching for truth. Audiences didn't just watch it, they devoured it. The film soared at the box office, captured the Palme d'Or at Cannes, and even won an Academy Award for Best Screenplay. But the biggest turning point came in 1972, 2 years after the film, when CBS rolled the dice and brought MASH to television. With creative minds like Larry Gelbart and Gene Reynolds at the helm, the show kept its military backdrop and dark wit, but added something new: emotional resonance. Alan Alda stepped into the role of Hawkeye and brought something unforgettable, a mix of sarcastic charm and aching humanity that made him the heartbeat of the series. The beginning wasn't smooth sailing, though. In its first season, the show struggled to find its audience and teetered dangerously close to cancellation. But CBS took a bold step. They shifted its time slot. And just like that, the numbers surged. MASH wasn't just surviving, it was dominating. It shattered TV norms. Gone were the generic laugh tracks. In came a mix of real military footage and nuanced storytelling that felt unlike anything else on the air. As the seasons rolled on, Alda's role grew far beyond acting. He took the reins as a writer and director, injecting the show with soul-searching episodes that touched on everything from PTSD to love lost. He wasn't just the star, he was shaping the very heart of MASH. But not everyone on set shared the same vision. As the tone shifted from slapstick to serious, some cast members began to feel left behind. Their characters, once vibrant and central, were evolving, or in some cases fading, and in that creative tug-of-war, the cracks started to show. Some felt their roles had lost meaning. Others simply wanted more room to grow. Whatever the reason, the departures began, and each one left a scar. Because MASH wasn't just a show, it was a family, and saying goodbye was never easy. Some cast members found themselves grappling with deeply personal struggles, while others felt a magnetic pull toward unexplored creative horizons. Throughout its unforgettable 11-season run, MASH went through a number of casting changes, but no matter who stepped in or bowed out, the soul of the show held firm, revealing the raw cost of war through laughter, tenderness, and deeply human stories. So let's spin the clock back to the moment everything changed. The show's first truly earth-shaking departure wasn't just a cast change, it was a gut punch. A character exit so shocking, the writers made a bold, harrowing choice, and the audience never forgot it. That moment? It belongs to McLean Stevenson. Ask any devoted MASH fan which scene still hits like a freight train, and chances are they'll all name the same one without hesitation. The chilling final minutes of Season 3's heart-wrenching finale, Abyssinia, Henry. Just one quiet sentence, softly spoken by radar, left the entire nation reeling. Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake's plane was shot down over the Sea of Japan. There were no survivors. In that instant, television changed forever. It didn't just break hearts, it shattered boundaries. This was the first time a major MASH character met a tragic, irreversible end, and it carved a scar in the history of TV storytelling. But how did it all build up to that heartbreaking twist? From the very beginning, McLean Stevenson was a cornerstone of MASH. As Colonel Henry Blake, the well-meaning, slightly scatterbrained commander of the 4077th, he became the beating heart of the camp. While Hawkeye and Trapper kept the sarcasm sharp and the rule-breaking sharper, Henry brought balance, warmth, vulnerability, and a kind of chaotic calm. Audiences instantly connected with him. McLean's performance struck just the right tone. He was hilarious, yes, but also incredibly human. That blend earned him not just laughs but awards, including a Golden Globe. He felt real, familiar, maybe even like someone you knew. But while the viewers were falling in love with Henry Blake, the reality off-camera was growing more complicated. Behind the scenes, according to interviews and memoirs from both cast and writers, McLean started to feel like something was missing. What began as an ensemble comedy slowly evolved into a platform largely orbiting around Alan Alda's Hawkeye. With Alda stepping deeper into the roles of writer, director, and producer, his character became the emotional anchor of the series. McLean, meanwhile, felt increasingly overlooked, pushed to the sidelines, his presence diminishing with each script. In 1975, he told People magazine something that revealed the heart of his frustration. "I want to be number one. I want to be the guy carrying the show." Some might hear ego in that quote, but there was more beneath the surface. This wasn't about vanity. It was about vision. McLean had ambitions. Big ones. He didn't want to be the guy who just delivered punchlines or played the lovable fool. He wanted to lead, to grow, to stretch beyond the label of comic relief. But here's the harsh truth about showbiz. Once you're cast into a type, it's like cement. Getting out of that mold, nearly impossible. And McLean saw the trap forming around him. He knew if he stayed, he'd never escape it. He believed in his ability. He understood what television could do, how it could shape careers and legacies, and he was ready to step into the spotlight, not just remain in someone else's shadow. So as Season 3 neared its close, he made the leap. He told the producers he was done. He wouldn't be returning to the 4077th. But here's where MASH did what no sitcom had dared to do before. Most shows gave beloved characters a soft goodbye, a new job, a cross-country move, maybe even a wedding. Something gentle, something safe. But MASH? It was never about playing it safe. Back when Larry Gelbart and Gene Reynolds were crafting MASH, they didn't just want to entertain, they saw a chance to shake things up. At the core of their creative vision was a powerful reminder. MASH wasn't just about laughs, it was a story about the grim reality of war. They believed audiences needed a jolt, a reminder that war leaves scars, and not everyone gets to walk away whole. And right then, they had the perfect moment to drive that truth home. What came next would become one of the most unforgettable chapters in TV history, the episode titled Abyssinia, Henry. In this bombshell of a story, Henry Blake finally receives his discharge papers and begins preparing for the sweet journey back to civilian life. It starts off tenderly, friends saying goodbye, smiles and tears mingling, the kind of send-off you hope for. For most of the episode, there's a sense of warmth, of closure, like the ending of a cherished book. Then, like thunder crashing into calm skies, the final scene hits with brutal force. Radar O'Reilly walks slowly into the operating room, clutching his cap and looking shattered. As the surgeons continue working, he delivers a blow no one expects. Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake's plane was shot down over the Sea of Japan. There were no survivors. What happened next wasn't just dramatic, it was soul-piercing. The room fell into a silence that didn't just echo, it deafened. No music, no canned laughter, not even the whir of helicopters, only stunned eyes and the mechanical beep of surgical monitors. That one scene turned the television world on its head. It marked a groundbreaking moment, the rare death of a beloved sitcom character, done with no hint or build-up. And the emotion that spilled across the screen? That wasn't all acting. Only a handful of cast members were clued in before filming. Alda later explained that Gary Burghoff, playing Radar, was the lone insider. That final shot caught the cast reacting in real time, most of them processing the shock right along with the audience. As soon as the episode aired, phones lit up and letters flooded in. Thousands of viewers felt compelled to write in, some in awe of the show's bravery, others furious over the loss of Henry Blake. Plenty of fans were heartbroken, but others accused the producers of taking things too far, pushing past the boundaries of television comfort. Larry Gelbart didn't back down. He stood by the move, saying, "We wanted to say that not everybody gets to go home." And with that line, they carved a permanent place in pop culture history. But what about Stevenson, the man behind Henry Blake? His story after MASH wasn't the fairy tale he might have envisioned. At first, everything looked promising. He struck a major deal with NBC, determined to carve a new lane. He took the lead in the Stevenson Show, a cheerful sitcom designed around his natural likability. It looked like he was scripting his own success story, one where he stepped out of MASH's shadow. Unfortunately, the spotlight dimmed quickly. His show was axed after just a single season. He gave it another shot with Hello Larry, but that gamble fell even flatter. Despite major buzz and lots of marketing, critics were brutal, and viewers didn't connect. It became more of a punchline than a hit. Looking back, it became clear that MASH had been lightning in a bottle. Years later, McLean admitted the weight of that decision in a 1983 Los Angeles Times interview. "I took myself out of the game." It wasn't just the ratings failure that haunted him. It was the dawning awareness that MASH was irreplaceable. The cast, the scripts, the chemistry, they were rare magic, the kind you don't stumble into twice. Some cast members like Alan Alda and Loretta Swit expressed both sadness and understanding. He had dreams of stretching his wings. Although McLean had lingering regrets, he pressed forward in the world of television and occasionally popped up in guest spots on various shows. Still, nothing quite matched the impact or audience bond he had as Henry Blake. By the time he passed away in 1996 at the age of 68, the tributes flooded in, from longtime fans to those who worked closest with him. Alan Alda honored him as a wonderful actor and a good man, while Gary Burghoff called him a light-hearted spirit who brought joy to everyone around him. Whatever you might say about McLean's exit, there's no denying that in some strange way, it gave the series its emotional heartbeat. That's the strange twist. He walked away searching for bigger opportunities, yet the role he left behind became the most iconic of his entire career. But if you thought his departure was a heavy hit, what followed with Wayne Rogers was an entirely different storm, discreet, tangled, and dripping with off-camera tension. Wayne Rogers' situation stood in stark contrast. While McLean got a landmark farewell episode filled with tears and unforgettable moments, Wayne simply faded out. One week he was there, the next, gone. No curtain call, no big explanation, not even a goodbye hug. Why such a sudden vanishing act? Well, not everything behind the scenes is as smooth as the smiles you see on screen. To unpack this, let's rewind to how it all began. Wayne took on the role of Trapper John McIntyre, the fun-loving half of the original comedic team that shaped MASH's early tone. Alongside Alda's Hawkeye, their chemistry lit up the screen and helped define the spirit of the unit. Audiences were hooked, especially when the duo engaged in rapid-fire quips, clever schemes, and an unbreakable friendship. Their dynamic was like a surgical take on The Odd Couple, full of wit and wartime chaos. But beneath all the laughter and hijinks, a storm was quietly brewing. You see, Wayne had originally signed on thinking he'd be part of a balanced ensemble cast. As the show evolved, though, much of the narrative spotlight began zeroing in on Alda's Hawkeye. Over time, he transformed into more than just a co-lead. He became the show's guiding light and moral core. And once Alda, who was also a skilled writer and director, began steering the creative ship, the tone and focus shifted dramatically. At first, Wayne didn't seem to mind Alda's growing influence. On the surface, they even got along well off camera. But gradually, Wayne started to feel himself pushed into the background. Hawkeye's character got to grow and mature, while Trapper seemed frozen in place. Before long, the dynamic duo felt more like a solo act with a sidekick. Wayne later opened up about his frustrations, not from a place of ego, but from a desire for balanced storytelling. He once admitted, Trapper didn't have much to do. He was one of two buddies, and then he became the guy who nodded at everything Alan said. Unlike McLean, who exited with fanfare and legacy intact, Wayne chose a more reserved route. Without alerting the press or raising alarm, he quietly declined to renew his contract after season 3. The producers didn't officially realize he had walked until right before season 4 kicked off filming. And here's the kicker. Wayne had never even signed a formal contract. He had been working on nothing more than a handshake agreement the entire time. So when the producers threatened legal action, they discovered they had no real footing. He hadn't broken anything official. He simply walked away from a project he felt no longer respected his role. His departure came so suddenly that the writers were left scrambling for a plan B. In the season 4 opener, they had to explain Trapper's absence with a quick line. He'd been discharged while Hawkeye was on leave. The reaction from fans was instant and raw. First Henry, now Trapper? Viewers were stunned, and to make things worse, Trapper didn't even get a proper send-off. No parting celebration, no emotional finale, just silence. Trying to pick up the pieces, the producers introduced Mike Farrell as B.J. Honeycutt, a more emotionally grounded, less rebellious counterpart. With B.J. came a shift in the show's rhythm. The rowdy buddy comedy morphed into something quieter, deeper, and more reflective. And here's the ironic twist. Many would argue MASH became a richer show in Trapper's absence. Though some fans stayed loyal to the early seasons, others embraced the show's evolution. As for Wayne, he didn't fade into obscurity after MASH. Instead, he pivoted sharply, becoming a savvy financial commentator and investor. Wayne had brains to match his talent. He studied history at Princeton and later thrived on Wall Street. By the 1990s, he was regularly seen on Fox News cashing in, weighing in on economics and public policy. His biggest fortunes came not from acting, but from strategic investing. Still, he never completely abandoned the screen. He returned now and then for a few TV roles, and even laughed about his time on MASH during later interviews. Despite the abruptness of his exit, there seemed to be no lingering resentment between him and his former co-stars. Alda once said, "Wayne is one of the smartest people I've ever worked with. I missed him a lot when he left." That friendship never really faded. And when Wayne passed in 2015 at the age of 82, Alda tweeted a touching tribute. He was smart, funny, curious, and dedicated. We made a pact to give each other a hard time for the rest of our lives, and I'm sorry we won't have the chance. Even though he left MASH at its peak without applause or closure, fans still remember him fondly for Trapper's mischievous grin and easygoing warmth. We've explored actors who exited for personal growth or creative change, but some, like Gary Burghoff, left because the emotional toll became unbearable. Ironically, Gary was the heart of the unit, yet he exited not with a bang, but a quiet, painful farewell that many still don't fully understand. To fans, Gary was Radar O'Reilly, the innocent clerk who could sense helicopters before they appeared, a teddy bear in one hand, the weight of war in the other. While others bent or broke the rules, Radar remained the thread that kept the camp together. Some would even say he was the soul of the 47th. But behind Radar's wide eyes and soft voice, Gary was struggling. He had been the only cast member to carry over his role from the original 1970 MASH film. And he redefined the character, taking him from mischievous in the movie to tender and unforgettable on TV. Radar became a symbol of innocence in a world that had lost its way. His portrayal was so unique that many saw him as irreplaceable. But by season 7, the cracks in Gary's personal life began to show. The pressure of MASH's grueling schedule collided with his perfectionist nature and fragile mental health. He was privately battling anxiety and depression, issues that were often kept silent during that era, but took a heavy toll. On top of that, Gary was missing out on crucial time with his young family. He was married with a daughter and later admitted missing her early years was a mistake I never stopped regretting. In a 2018 interview, Mike Farrell shared, "Gary had emotional problems. He always felt that he wasn't getting the attention or appreciation he deserved. But I think he underestimated how much we all respected him. And then there were contract tensions. Gary wanted more money, fewer hours, and more time with his loved ones. The producers tried to help. They reduced his appearances and gave him some breathing room. But by then, he was emotionally checked out. So in season 8, Gary made the tough call to leave the series behind. This time, unlike Wayne, the show didn't just let him vanish. Radar got a beautifully written 2-part farewell, titled Goodbye Radar, which remains one of the most emotional episodes in MASH history. In the story, he returns to chaos and realizes that maybe it's time to let go. His mother needs him back home. The family farm is struggling, and perhaps Radar is no longer the same innocent he once was. That final scene, Radar walking into the Korean horizon, leaving his teddy bear on Hawkeye's bed, is quietly devastating. It spoke volumes without saying a word. Viewers didn't just lose a character, they lost a piece of their own innocence. After his exit, Gary stepped back from the spotlight. He tried a spin-off called Walter, in which Radar becomes a rookie cop, but it didn't stick. Eventually, Gary turned his energy toward painting, wildlife conservation, and even inventing. Believe it or not, he holds several patents, including one for a fishing tackle system. Nature became his haven, a way to recover from the pressures of stardom and the emotional weight that MASH left behind. In Gary's words, "I left for 2 reasons, my family and burnout. I needed to reclaim my life." And honestly, who could blame him? These days, Gary keeps a low profile. He rarely gives interviews and avoids the limelight, but once in a while he'll appear at a fan convention or offer a heartfelt quote, and people remember the boyish face who always seemed to hear the helicopters first. Now let's shift to another unforgettable figure. The actor behind one of the most iconic TV villains ever, Larry Linville. It's hard to picture early MASH without the uptight, rule-bound, hilariously petty Frank Burns. Larry Linville nailed the part. Major Burns was arrogant, insecure, and totally obsessed with rules, not to mention his secret romance with Major Houlihan. As far as comedic foils go, he was pitch perfect. But as the show matured, Frank's flat character arc became increasingly obvious and less funny. While the rest of the cast evolved and deepened, Frank remained trapped in his own loop of insecurities and pettiness. And Linville, a skilled actor capable of much more, started to grow restless. So by the close of season 5, he made a decisive move. He chose not to return. He once admitted that he felt he had gone as far as he could with the role. No one showed him the door, and there was zero bad blood. Instead, he chose to leave of his own accord, sensing that the show had outgrown Frank's one-note role. His exit sent a shockwave through the series. Without Frank's over-the-top antics, MASH had the breathing room to dive deeper into layered ethical dilemmas. Suddenly, the writers didn't need a one-dimensional foil anymore. The comedy could now stem from real human contradictions, rather than over-the-top cruelty. Many believe Larry's departure became a defining moment for MASH, elevating its artistry and emotional depth. Yet even so, his absence didn't go unnoticed by loyal viewers. Frank had embodied both the comic relief and the emotional tension for 5 unforgettable seasons. Once he left, the whole rhythm of the show shifted. Even though his character didn't get an emotional send-off, he was written out with a cushy promotion off-screen. The audience, however, could feel the impact of his absence in every scene that followed. While Larry took on other roles in film and television, he never again landed a character as iconic or as memorable as Frank Burns. Larry's exit wasn't the only transition the series went through. Soon after, the show introduced a new face who would eventually depart too, David Ogden Stiers. If Frank had been the exaggerated antagonist, then Charles Emerson Winchester III was his intellectual, slow-burning opposite. Season 6 ushered in Winchester, a man worlds apart from Frank in every way. Sophisticated, brilliant, aloof, and guarded to the core, he was more than just an obstacle. He became a true counterpoint to Hawkeye, to BJ, and even to the show's entire rhythm. David Ogden Stiers gave him nuance, elegance, and restraint. At first glance, Winchester seemed unbearable, but with time, layers peeled away. He didn't lack a heart, he simply kept it buried. His pride sometimes clouded his kindness, but never replaced it. Hidden beneath all the highbrow talk of symphonies and Bordeaux was a man struggling with the agony of wartime, one patient at a time. Unlike some of his peers, David remained with the show until its very last breath. His departure came not from creative clashes, but as a graceful conclusion to a rich arc. One of the series' most moving moments is his farewell scene, teaching Chinese POWs to play Mozart. That haunting image stays with fans long after the credits roll. Because Winchester wasn't meant to charm us. He was there to remind us that even the most refined souls can be shattered by war. When the spin-off Aftermath came calling, David gracefully declined. He explained that Winchester had completed his journey. "I've said everything Winchester needed to say," he once remarked. After the show, David found success voicing beloved characters in Disney films. In 2009, he made headlines for revealing something deeply personal. "I am gay. Very proud to be so," he told Gossip Boy. He explained that for years, fear of being blacklisted kept him quiet, especially while doing Disney work or acting on camera. At the time, the risk of losing roles or being typecast was all too real. Despite guarding his private life, David earned immense admiration across Hollywood. He was known not just for his powerful performances, but for his quiet dignity and wide emotional range. In 2018, he passed away at the age of 75 after battling bladder cancer. But his story, and his bravery, continues to inspire, both on-screen and off. Now before we wrap up, it's only fair to spotlight some unforgettable women who helped shape MASH. Though they often played supporting roles, their impact was undeniable. And one standout was Major Margaret "Hot Lips" Houlihan. In the madness of a war zone filled with men joking their way through trauma, the women faced an uphill battle to be taken seriously. No woman on the show had a more dramatic transformation than Major Houlihan, brought to life by Loretta Swit. When MASH first aired, Margaret was treated more like comic relief than a complex character. Her nickname, Hot Lips, came straight from a punchline in the original film. Rigid, rule-following, and often the target of mockery, she was written as a caricature. But Loretta Swit wasn't about to let her character be one-dimensional. With every new season she added layers. Brains, grit, and heartache. By the series finale, Margaret wasn't just respected, she had become a fully fleshed out icon. Loretta once said, "I wanted her to be a woman of substance," and she succeeded. Margaret stood tall as a decorated officer, a brilliant nurse, and a moral compass in a chaotic world. She dared to question the war while never compromising her duty. And unlike many male cast members who moved on, Loretta stayed from the beginning to the end. She was one of just 4 actors to appear in both the very first and final episodes. While other female roles came and went, Lieutenant Ginger Bayliss, Nurse Cutler, Margaret endured, and she evolved. In a world where war stripped people bare, Margaret remained unshaken in her strength. Thanks to Loretta's unwavering dedication, she ensured the women weren't sidelined in a man's story. She was the only female name in the opening credits, and she made every moment count. So now we ask you, did we miss anyone? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new upload.